Testing every newly reworked exotic in Season 21? Season 21 has introduced some brand new exotic buffs. In this video, we are going to be going through all of them. You are not going to want to skip anything because some exotics that used to be trash are now absolutely meta. So don't just skip to your favorite ones. However, if you want to see a particular exotic, there are timestamps in the description. What's good, guys? It's Zen, and if you know me, you know I'm not going to waste your time with these videos, so let's hop right into the first one. We'll start on the Hunter buffs with Sealed Ahamkara Grasps. Now, as you can see, the old exotic perk reloads your weapon just for landing a melee hit and gives you airborne effectiveness for 5 seconds. However, this is only the currently equipped weapon. The exotic now reloads the magazine of all of your weapons when you defeat a target with your powered melee. Not just hitting them, you need to defeat them now. And you also get 5 seconds of increased movement speed and jump height just for hitting an enemy with your melee. I also went ahead and tested it, and it seems that this is the same speed increase that Stompees gets. The next exotic, Athrys' Embrace, used to let your weighted throwing knife bounce twice. On top of that, landing precision hits before you throw your knife increased the damage of the knife, and it let you stun unstoppable champions with it. Now, the buff said you were supposed to gain additional strength, but this is quite vague. Based on my testing, the cooldown is the exact same, or any change is unnoticeable, and the damage is also the same. Not sure what's going on here, Bungie. Now, Oathkeepers were always a really weird exotic. They used to just let you hold your bow charge indefinitely, increased draw speed slightly, and gave airborne effectiveness to bows. Now, after the buff, when your bow is fully drawn, you gain a bonus damage against combatants that increases as you hold the draw, but it deactivates after a few seconds. Now, Raiju's Harness is an exotic that's always been pretty bad. The old perk let you deactivate Arc Staff early, which would save some of your super energy if you didn't need to use it anymore, and blocking with your Arc Staff wouldn't cost additional super energy. Now, after the buff, when you actually deactivate your Arc Staff, you get a blinding explosion that also increases your arc weapon damage. However, it did get nerfed in that when you block with your Whirlwind Guard, it no longer consumes your energy more slowly. Also, based on my testing, Raiju's Harness's blind effect is very weak in PvP. Radiant Dance Machines were a once broken exotic that got nerfed into the ground long ago. The exotic perk used to let you dodge infinitely for a short duration of 5 seconds. However, the exotic perk only worked while in the vicinity of enemies, which isn't always the safest place to be. It has worked with Reaper as long as the mod has been in the game though, which made this exotic somewhat useful up until now. After the buff, as long as you are killing enemies, you can extend the duration of your dodge chain, meaning you can theoretically spam infinite Reaper dodge combos as long as there are enemies to kill. You also don't need to stay near enemies anymore to maintain the perk. This is quite decent on a Surge mod plus Void Invisibility build, which I will definitely be making a video on, so stay tuned. It is also worth noting that with this exotic, you used to be able to spam the Suspense Slam, but using it now deactivates the exotic perk. Now, we all know Stompees has a long history of dominance in the PvP meta. Bungie's first change was adding a gigantic airborne effectiveness debuff. As you can see, this has indeed been reverted. With this season, Bungie's next attempt at balancing it was making it so that the speed and jump height you get from the exotic only lasted while your dodge is fully charged. This works as intended, as you can see. However, I didn't trust them to not stealth nerf the speed, so I tested it myself. As you can see, they did stick to their word on this, which is great to see. Now, for Mask of Bakris, this exotic has always replaced your dodge with a teleport, and after emerging from the teleportation, you gained an arc weapon damage boost. You have also always gotten an additional damage boost to slowed and frozen enemies. After the buff, they say they increased the damage from 10% to 25%, but made it so surge mods don't stack. I tested it myself, and as you can see, this damage increase is actually not accurate. It went up about 10% when it was supposed to go up by 15%. And they indeed do not work with surge mods. Point Contact Cannon Brace reads, defeating targets with your Thunderclap melee restores melee energy, and targets near you when you use Thunderclap suffer lightning strikes, being amplified increasing the range of these lightning strikes. Now, the new buff removes this range increase on the lightning strikes in favor of a damage increase while amplified. This buff was very well needed since the old damage was a measly 2000. No backup plans used to give you an overshield in exchange for your melee energy when getting a kill with a shotgun. Shotgun final blows also gave melee energy, and the exotic gave airborne effectiveness to shotguns. This exotic has been completely revamped. Now, while you have an overshield, shotguns deal additional damage, and final blows refresh your overshield. While using a void subclass, rapid shotgun final blows or defeating powerful enemies grants an overshield and starts your health regeneration. It still gives airborne effectiveness, but now it also gives a reload speed buff to shotguns. Second Chance has always given you 2 charges of your shield throw melee and stunned barrier champions. Now it weakens them, and when you stun a barrier champion with your shield throw, you get your melee charge fully refunded. Stronghold's old perk maximized the guard stat on your sword. Also, shots blocked immediately after guarding healed you. This was very strange to use, so this buff is quite excellent. Now, blocking gives you 50% damage reduction, and when you finish blocking, you get restoration. I'm very excited for this exotic, so expect a build for this coming soon. It's also worth noting that your restoration duration is dependent on how many shots you actually block. At least, that's how it's supposed to work. Now, if you were paying attention there, you saw restoration didn't go off. I don't know what's going on here, it's probably bugged, but that's why we're testing things. Eternal Warrior's old perk was quite terrible. It gave you overshield when casting your Fist of Havoc super. This was only really ever used as a swap exotic. Now it gives you a damage bonus to your arc weapons after rapid takedowns. This goes all the way up to tier 4, which gives you a 25% damage bonus in PvE or 6% in PvP. While you're at tier 4, you can refresh the bonus duration by getting arc kills. Finally, when your Fist of Havoc super ends, you gain the tier 4 bonus for free. You also retain the overshield from the original perk. One thing I'd like to mention is that although this does not per se stack with surge mods do allow you to hit tier 4 damage bonus much faster, so I'd still use them when using any of the newly buffed damage boosting exotics. Also, I don't know what's up with Bungie and giving fake numbers, but base Ikelos does 2448, while times 4 damage boost does 3060, which is only a 20% boost. Khepri's Horn retained its original perk, which gave you barricade energy for solar kills, and spawning a wave of solar energy when using your barricade. The buff it got was quite mediocre, only adding a bit of scorch damage. The weirdest part about this is that Ember of Ashes does not synergize, it is always locked to 30 scorch, which I'm assuming is some type of bug. I went ahead and tested the damage of this wave, but it remained the same unfortunately. Now it's also worth noting that before the patch, Khepri's Horn could actually one-shot you in PvP, and it still can. I just threw this in because I don't think a lot of people know that about this exotic, so you might as well give it a try. Finally, the effective range of the wave appeared to be 19 or 20 meters, and it did remain the same after the patch. Path of Burning Steps is your anti-stasis weapon. It makes you harder to slow or freeze, and you also take no damage for breaking out of being frozen. It's actually crazy how I can just stand in a dust field grenade with these and not get frozen unless they use all of their slow abilities. The new buff gives you a stacking damage bonus all the way up to tier 4 of 25% in PvE. Solar kills also refresh the bonus's duration. Now Bungie said it wouldn't stack with surge mods, so I went ahead and tested it just in case, and they definitely do not stack. Now Bungie said they do not stack with surge mods, and they certainly do not, but like I said earlier, the surge mods do help you reach that tier 4 much faster. Also, for some reason after the patch, I am getting frozen by Duskfield grenades. I don't see why they would nerf it, but that's what happened. Now we all know and love, or hate, the infamous Dunemarchers. This exotic gives you a speed boost, and after sprinting for a short duration, gave you a buff where if you punch someone, it gives your enemy a debuff that sends out chain lightning to all their teammates within a whopping 20 meter range. If their teammate wasn't near them on the initial punch, but later walked into that 20 meter range while the debuff was still active, the chain lightning was still sent out. Its damage was a crazy 80 as well. After the nerf, the range is only 12 meters, and it does 50 damage. I still think these will be quite good for shotgun aping, but I'm interested to see what you all think. It's probably going to be an Antaeus Ward meta now. Vesper of Radius has always been pretty bad. It retains its old exotic perk, which sent out an arc shockwave when you casted your rift. You also gained massive rift energy when surrounded by enemies. After the buff, enemies defeated by these shockwaves explode for additional damage, and blind any enemies nearby them. Also, the exotic now sends out a shockwave every 5 seconds instead of just one on the initial cast. It's also worth noting that I did test the range. Before the patch it was 7 meters, and it stayed 7 after the patch. Chromatic Fire has always been a weird one. Its base perk read, precision final blows with your kinetic weapon create an explosion in the element of your subclass. This explosion damage was always quite weak, but it was buffed with the new season. It now deals increased damage in a larger radius. The explosion now also applies status effects depending on your subclass. Dawn Chorus was always an interesting exotic, especially when it was tied into Solar 3.0. It retained its old exotic perk, which caused Daybreak projectiles to scorch targets and increasing your scorch damage. On top of that, this exotic now also boosts your Daybreak projectile damage even further, regardless of whether or not the target is scorched. Sanguine Alchemy has been buffed massively this season. Its old exotic perk extended the duration of your rift for getting weapon kills. It now also gives you a damage boost equal to 2 surge mods, which is 17%. I'm very excited for this exotic, so expect a build coming for it very soon. It's also worth noting that this damage bonus does stack with Empowering Rift, so you might want to pick that over Healing Rift depending on your playstyle. Claws of Ahamkara has always given you 2 melee charges. The exotic now has Intrinsic Heavy-Handed, which spawns an Orb of Power for melee kills. This stacks with heavy-handed mods, so you can effectively have up to 4 of these equipped for increased super energy. Mantle of Battle Harmony has always been a decently usable exotic, but with this buff, I genuinely think it'll be a lot more powerful. The old perk read, weapon takedowns matching your subclass element grants super energy, and then when your super was full, you gained a 20% damage bonus to weapons matching your subclass. This buff is now 25% and lasts 4 seconds longer, for a total of 10 seconds. It's still quite niche, but with Aegir Scepter on stasis, it'll do quite a lot of damage consistently. Now, Ophidian Aspect has been absolutely meta for a very long time in PvP. It gave you many passive benefits, including 10 airborne effectiveness, 35 reload speed and handling, and 2 extra meters on your melee lunge. With this patch, it was nerfed, removing that extra 2 meters of melee lunge. I tested it, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you're asking, this nerf did indeed make it into the patch. I'm just barely 7. Promethium Spur was always a very interesting exotic, but lacked the boons necessary to facilitate any real usage. Its old perk is still here, which allowed you to create a combined healing, empowering rift at a defeated target's location, so long as your rift energy was full. Also, while standing in a rift, Solar Weapon Final Blows gave rift energy. After this buff, Solar Weapon Final Blows give you rift energy whether or not you're in the rift, but being in a rift does give you more. Unfortunately, you can no longer defeat an enemy to spawn a healing empowering rift unless you are standing in your rift. In my opinion, this is not enough to make it very good, but I'd like to know what you guys think. And now for our final exotic rework, we have Starfire Protocol. Now we all love Starfire, but it is time to lay it to rest. Its grenade uptime has been significantly nerfed. It used to get 20% energy from damage, and now it's only 2.5%. It'll probably still see small usage, but this is a heavy hit, and relatively speaking, it is absolutely terrible compared to what it was. Rest in peace. Now that's going to be it for the exotics. In the next couple of days, I am going to have some absolutely meta builds coming out using some of these newly buffed exotics. So if you found any value in this content and you'd be interested in some builds, be sure to subscribe for daily Destiny 2 videos. Either way, appreciate you watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next video. Peace.